Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of Drawing a Webcomic. Today I will be showing you the sixth installment of my web series Dijwar and Imperial Prelude, and I will show you guys how I used a panel from another comic book artist, from my friend Tony Poirier. Tony is a comic book artist and he worked on a title called Concrete Park. He's also a screenwriter and he wrote The Eraser for Arnold Schwarzenegger and also the TV show, or for the TV show, The Queen of the South. And in my opinion, Tony is a guy who has a director's eye. And for one of the panels that I worked on, I used, uh, I took some inspiration from one of his panels that he created for Concrete Park. I'm going to show you how I did that. Also, on a side note, I am going to be uploading my webcomic now as a bi-weekly upload because unfortunately it would be too much work for me to do at this moment, to do it, to continue doing it weekly because of the format that I choose to do it in. The size has become a little bit bigger, and therefore I need to make sure that I can concentrate on other stuff as well. Same thing goes for my pinups, so that means one week I will have a pinup that I will upload, and the other week a webcomic panel or installment. And I will basically keep doing this, but the time-lapsing videos are going to remain the same. They are going to be uploaded weekly since they are very done very fast. And but I still hope that you guys are going to enjoy what I'm doing. If you like what you see here in this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram. It's at @saythatuzgen, which should be up here. And of course on Facebook, where you can read the comic, that's at @saythatuzgenart. And please don't forget to share and comment and like this video. And let me know in the comments what you think about the artwork that you see in this video. Thank you very much. And now off to the video. Bye bye. Alright everyone, so I am starting at first with the second panel from these three panels, simply because these are just two headshots, bust shots that I have to draw, and as you can see, I am exaggerating the shapes and forms a little bit in order to push the envelope a little bit on the artwork here and make the whole thing a little bit more interesting. And it seems like I'm done with this panel, and I'm heading over to the first panel, which the second panel that I'm drawing. And I based the layout for this panel on a drawing that I saw by my friend Tony Poirier. Tony is a Hollywood screenwriter. He wrote The Eraser for Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's also one of the screenwriters for Queen of the South. And he's also a comic book artist, and he did a book called Concrete Park. And in my opinion, he has the so-called director's eye, and I really love the way he's framing and placing and composing his pictures. And one of his panels in the comics looked similar to what I'm doing there, and I asked him if it's okay if I used one of his layouts for this one, because I really liked the way it looked, and he was okay with it. And so I didn't trace it or anything like that, but I based this panel on the panel by Tony. And I love the framing here, and it emphasizes what I am trying to communicate in that panel, but more to that later when I'm heading over to the inks. And now I'm drawing the third panel. The third panel is a little bit, although it has characters in the background and all that stuff, it's still a little bit more what I would call a silent and less busy panel. And I'm trying to push the characters into the front by making the foreground almost completely black, and adding only a few lines to the backgrounds in order to make them a little bit more separated from each other, the fore and background, and I think it worked quite nicely here, and I am happy with how it turned out. The thing is that these are panels where the characters are talking a lot, so I needed a lot of space for the word balloons. And now I'm starting with the tracing, and as I pointed out last time, when I'm tracing this stuff, I'm trying to keep it as loose as possible in order to have more fun and more choices in terms of decision making in the pencil and inking stage. And I'm also now tracing the first panel. The first panel takes obviously a little bit longer than the second panel, but since it has more information in it, and I'm trying to communicate something different here, I will have to add more details and more info into it. And despite the fact that it took me a little bit longer than the other panels, I was still having a lot of fun, and I was still able to leave a lot of artistic freedom in there for myself. But I think I mostly went with what I had in the layout stage, because there wasn't much that I needed to add there, and the only thing that needed to be added there was the stuff that I did during the inking. And here I am tracing the third panel. Usually there isn't much to say about the tracing stage, because it rarely, or it doesn't happen too often, that there are significant changes. So but now I am working on the first panel again, and the interesting thing here is that by having built this frame and using a lot of blacks, I will be able to direct the focus of the viewer to where I want to guide them without being too obvious. And I think it is an interesting form of artistic language that I can use without being too on the nose. And once again, this was based on Tony's layout for one of his panels in Concrete Park, but there's still a huge difference between these two panels. But I think that it turned out nicely. What you always have to take care of while you are inking such small figures is that you're not adding too much details and not too much infos in there, because you want to make sure that these small figures are not overloaded with details, simply because of the fact that it can, first of all, it can be very distracting, and second of all, if you ever plan to print this stuff, some of this may not be printed nicely onto paper, and therefore you have to be really careful with that. So that's why I'm trying to add as much detail as I can without overloading it, and that's usually the hardest thing here, because it can be sometimes there can be too much information and there can be too many details, and that may cause the viewer to be overloaded with information. And as usual, I will make sure as usually I will make sure with the Screentones that I'll find a way to fix that or figure that out, because right now, if you look at the panel, you wouldn't be able to figure out who or where the main characters are without having to look really close. But since I am going to be adding some Screentones onto the paper, it will be a little bit clearer. And now I've added all the details and weathering and dirt and dust and all the stuff that makes the buildings look a little bit more used up, because you want to make sure that these buildings look believable and realistic and not like some kind of a shiny um, object that may look like a house or may look like a vehicle or something like that, but doesn't have the usual signs of having been used or something like that, because you want to make sure that these buildings look like somebody lived in there, like people have been using these buildings for more than, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, maybe 100, maybe 200 years, you don't know. They are under constant pressure. They're being weathered down either by rain or maybe snow or maybe dirt, whatever it is. And by just adding a few lines, you can make those buildings look more realistic and therefore more believable, without having to go and create super detailed stuff in there. And yeah, obviously I'm finished with the second panel. There wasn't much to say about that one because it was straightforward. And the third panel is also an interesting one, because these two characters are similar to the first panel, very small, but since they are the main focus here on the page, they're easier to see. And by adding more blacks onto these two characters and less blacks onto the characters in the back, I am emphasizing them more and directing the focus of the attention of the reader onto these two characters. And similar to the first panel, I will also try to emphasize that a little bit more with screen tones, but that will follow up in just a bit. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be just adding only a few lines to the backgrounds. It's going to be not overloaded, but also not not sloppy or something like that, where I'm leaving leaving a lot of stuff out, because I want to make sure that everything is equally quote unquote good. And the best way to guarantee that is trying to find the right balance in the detailing when you're happy with the artwork. And yeah, and it seems like I'm done with most of the inks. I'm just adding a little bit of whiteout and ink onto the paper, and then I'm starting with the screen tones. And since these two characters are very small and hard to see, I am just using the whiteout in order to basically frame them. And I'm doing the same thing in the third panel. And it helps because it now pushes them even further towards the attention of the reader, and I like where it's going. And on the second panel, I'm sorry, there's basically just I would just be using screen tones for the uniforms of both characters or the clothes of both characters. And yeah, the video is almost finished. As usual, or as always, if you like these videos, please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share my videos. And if you want to see more of my artwork in general, then please follow me on Instagram. It's at Sedat Özgen. And if you want to read the webcomic, please follow me on Facebook. It's at Sedat Özgen Art. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bye bye.